So here we are today with Nick Baxter from Baxter Williams, a recruitment company that looks at not just recruitment, but a culture within a business. And I'll let you tell us a bit more about that in a minute, Nick. But yeah, we're here today with the first episode of IsoNation's News, the Leaders Insight interviews. These are just a load of discussions with business leaders where we're going to get insight, information, opinion, and the latest news in terms of their sector as we all traverse this pandemic together. So Nick, what a world we're in right now, hey?
Crazy. First of all, thanks very much for including me in IsoNation. It's going to be a really exciting initiative, and it's nice to be one of the first interviews. Yeah, crazy times, as you say, Christian. Unrivaled. I suppose not since the crash of 2009. Really, have we seen anything quite like this? It wasn't economically driven, but it certainly affected the economic landscape both here and globally, as we all well know.
Yeah, when was that oh my God moment for you when you just realized, this was something serious unraveling in front of us? I don't think any of us initially would have seen the impacts that have happened so immediately. But when was your oh my God moment that you realized this was really going to hit home?
You know what? It's really funny actually, because someone else asked me that recently. I think for me, we knew Corona was an issue. We knew that it was an issue. I think we all knew it was going to be coming. It was going to be global, but it was all really concentrated on in China, where the first cases were being dealt with some ferocity. I think the thing for me was I had two tables at Cheltenham for clients. We go to Cheltenham every single year. One, because it's local, and two, because it's a really great way for us to solidify and say thank you to a number of our key clients. And we've taken a table on the Tuesday and a table on the Thursday. And I remember the week before, they said, do you think Cheltenham's still going to be on? And there was no one has ever worried or was thought it was going to be called off. And it was actually only when I was at Cheltenham, the last day on the Thursday, that I realised actually this could be something quite serious. And then 2 weeks later, we get the lockdown, and that was it. Things had started happening. We'd realised things had started slowing down, and people were being affected. So people's supply chain was being affected. It only really hit home and really made a massive impact when we weren't able to work, when we weren't able to get out, when we weren't able to kind of traverse the working supply chain like we normally do. That's when it really kind of hit.
That's interesting. So you were at Cheltenham, you were at the races, because that was being covered at the time as whether those should have even been allowed to go on. So it was already we were in the thick, sort of in the thick of the beginnings by that point. That's interesting to know. I mean, because how did you initially react then? What were your thoughts while you were at the races? What was your sort of moment of realization? What was that dawning? And what happened afterwards?
Well, for me, it was just a sheer volume of people, because every day running up to Cheltenham, everyone was saying it's going to be fine. Even on the morning, everyone was saying it's going to be fine. And when I just remember being there, it's hundreds of thousands of people. I was in hospitality, so we were only in a room of 100 people, but you're walking and going through crowds of tens of thousands of people. That's when it kind of hit home. And it was only on the Friday when I remember watching Gold Cup on the TV that you just realise you're in this hub. And if anybody was infected or anybody was at risk, certainly it would have been a lot of those people. It's quite, and hindsight's an amazing thing, personally and in business and in hindsight. But we didn't know how bad it was because no one had really said, we need to stop mingling, we need to stop interacting.
It certainly caught us all off guard. I mean, it's and we're in the throes of it now. I mean, that's something we'll come on to, is that uncertainty that we're all in now, because we still really barely know more than we did back then. It's just the difference is the changing in working environment. So how did you initially react in terms of the business once you had that moment of realization, and what's happened since? What have been the influences you've put in place, and what impacts have you seen as a result of this pandemic?
Yeah, well, it's again funny you should ask that question. The impact was immediate. The response and the delay in what was happening was day by day. So as soon as we were told, we're going to be working from home, we shouldn't really be going out to work, then that was fine. In terms of working from home, we're a recruitment business. A number of times, because we're in that, we've got a regional presence, but we've got a national presence as well. So if people are elsewhere in the country and they come back at midday, there's no point coming back into the office, go home, work from home. Frequently, people work from home around their work-life balance. We're a really flexible business around work and family. So for us, it wasn't an issue. We've got the tech, we've got the technology. Everybody's kept up. They've got 3 monitors at home. They've got the setup. So in terms of continuity, from that perspective, that wasn't an issue. The issue was how everyone else was dealing with working from home. A number of our organisations we work with, they're either in construction or house building. So a lot of the workers and the people we recruit are on site in either management roles or in trades and labour roles. So the impact was day by day. So day by day, we saw interviews being cancelled, which was fine because we've got our own Baxter Williams tech, as you can see, we're utilising it today. So we could use that for remote interviews and for remote onboarding. But what happened was, slowly but surely, people were no longer able to go on site to even do that, and that's when it happened. So in terms of the business, we moved everyone to home straight away. We made sure that everyone was set up. And then we were still, up until last week, we were still working on roles, but really by the middle of last week, the roles had stopped. We've still got some roles which we're supporting from a trades and labour perspective for essential working and for the Nightingale hospitals, but that's one of my consultants at 10. So in essence, things have kind of really dried up from a work perspective. But we're doing lots of other stuff which no doubt we'll touch upon later.
Well, yeah, that's just how are you adapting then to fill that void?
Yeah, well, you know what, it's been the big concern for a number of organisations such as ours is to make sure that well-being of your staff is looked after. And as I touched upon before, like the work-life balance is really important. That's one element. But actually, from a mental health and a sanity perspective, as we are now, I'm in the office because I'm the only one in my office, and my office is 2 minutes from my house, but everyone is in their house. And so when we're doing video conference calls, we see that they're in their lounge, or they're in the kitchen, or they're in their spare room, or they're in a dedicated office, but they're living and working in the same space. And having come to the end of week 2, you can see that visibly is starting to take its toll on people, because they're having to work there's no break, there's no place where they can reset, go home, or they can start in a different place and finish in a different place. They're all in the same place, primarily with family and friends, if the friends live with them in the homes. That's been really difficult. So in terms of expectations, from my perspective, we've kind of peeled back the work expectations. We can't speak, we can't talk to people. And so we've been really fortunate, actually. We invested in a new website, and we'd already started the process of looking for a new CRM partner, which we've, over the last week, we've chose those. We've created a little marketing hub, obviously, which you're part of, from a Nifty perspective. And we're using this opportunity now to ensure that we've got the new website, we've got the new CRM system is embedded, we've got thousands of candidates, thousands of clients that we need to migrate. It gives the perfect opportunity to kind of verify the integrity of that information, not just from a GDPR perspective, but from a relevancy perspective. So, and we're also doing lots of training. There's lots of training we're doing. I was really fortunate enough to go on the Goldman Sachs High Growth Program last year, which I graduated from Oxford in January on that. And so we've been implementing, it was really cool, actually, it's really cool. But we're implementing that growth plan. Nothing's changing in terms of Baxter Williams. We're still going to grow. We've got to get through the immediate treacle, but we know that whatever we've lost over the next 3 to 6 months, we'll get back. The areas of specialism that we work within, we know there's a sharp decline in demand, but we know that incline is going to be twice as big. So at the moment, I'm, unlike a lot of other recruiting like businesses, they're furloughing or they're getting rid of people. We made an appointment this week. Actually, we had a new start on the 1st of April within our trades and labour space, because they're still recruiting. And it's still very much not business as usual. We're not business as usual at all, but it's still very much, we know where we want to be. We just don't know when that's going to be.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of, that's where we all 7 evolutionary, limbo almost, while we're waiting to see how it all unfolds and what the end game looks like. But I mean, how has that affected your workforce then? How have they reacted to the impact?
Yeah, well, you know what? The guys are very driven, they're very capable, they're very credible, and they got a great track record amongst their clients and candidates. So, from a reputation perspective, the big issue for those guys is they're not able to keep delivering. You know, they're really driven to make sure we're connecting the exceptional people, and they're not able to do that. So that has affected them because, you know, your identity as being a great recruiter. If you're not able to recruit, what more can we do? And we've reiterated amongst some of the more junior guys that, you know, at the moment we don't sell to anyone. What we don't do is we don't go and present candidates to anyone. We don't go and try and type for anyone's business. What we want to do is to make sure that they have a business when this all subsides. So all we're doing at the moment, we're offering any assistance. Most people now are planning. Most people are either contingency planning or they're looking to review what the plan was for 2020. And we know that that plan largely involves people. So we're just offering any assistance at this stage when they're benchmarking plans, in terms of talking about what you want to do in the future, in terms of giving people an understanding of what the market might look like. That's what we're doing at the moment. And the biggest thing we're doing, Christian, is we're opening our network. We've got an unrivaled network. And there's lots of people that we might be able to open doors to. We've been doing that daily. We're just saying, listen, we've got an unrivaled network. Is there anyone in your supply chain that we could assist with? Is there anything you can do from a cost-cutting perspective or from a supply chain perspective? Is there anyone that we can open some doors to? So, for example, one of the guys we recruited is manufacturing business within the steels. They're still working with essentials within the essential sector. We've recently placed a finance director, and we've recently placed someone in finance as a 9-month maternity cover. And he rang me today and just said, listen, I know what your network's like. We need some PPE masks. Can you help me? So we put something out on LinkedIn, and someone in my network has been able to assist him. He wouldn't have been able to go on site without them, has been able to pass something over. Now, listen, that's just a great way to, one, solidify and strengthen a relationship, and two, you know, recruiters have got far too often have a reputation for taking without giving. That's the complete opposite for Baxter Williams, and that's exactly what I'm telling the guys to do.
And it's interesting because you are strong in the motivational and culture of a business and keeping your team motivated and on point and on the same page. And in respect of what you're saying there, a change is as good as a break sometimes, isn't it? So the fact that they're allowed to now concentrate on something else to build a strategy for, you know, 3 to 6 months time, wherever we may be, that's going to be a bit of a change that can reset, and hopefully they'll come out refreshed and motivated for the future. I don't know whether you know what's happening around the rest of the industry. Have you spoken to many in recruitment?
Yeah,
that are being put in place.
Yeah, 100%. So I'm part of a network called the Canaries, and they're 40 independent recruitment owners. It's a member-only group, where only credible operators are allowed to be a member and continue to be members. And that's a real strong network and a real support network for me. Pretty similar to IsoNation, but dedicated to recruitment. And the guys, they're either following people. No one's really got rid of anybody, which is great because they're really good. They really look after the people in the Canaries. Really look after and value the relationships they've got with their staff. Because without them, we don't have businesses. And that's been the forefront. Everyone else is just making sure that everyone's mental health is fine. They're putting stuff into place like we are to make sure that people utilise that hour's worth of break, to make sure that people aren't looking at computer screens continuously, and making sure they're keeping tabs of that, making sure that they're hydrated, making sure that we have lots of fun as well. So we have 3 VC calls like this 3 times a day. We check in at 9 o'clock and review the day. At 4 o'clock, we do a similar thing. We have a quiz every day. So each team member has got to come up with 20 quiz questions. And we found out a lot about people's general knowledge over the last couple of weeks. I've been impressed with a few and not so impressed with mine, but that's another story. But just making sure that you can still have fun. At the forefront of every business leader and every business owner is cash. We don't know, everyone's cash flow is slightly different. Everyone's war chest of money in the banks, cash in banks position slightly different. So that's stuff for us to worry about. The big concern for the staff is to make sure that they're still energized, that they're still engaged, and that they're still motivated. And I think we know what it's like when we're doing our job. There's lots of admin that we don't normally get to do. There's lots of stuff we don't get to work on our business because we're working in our business. And every person in Baxter Williams has an element of a business to look after, has a desk, is responsible for that. And so we're just giving them an opportunity to kind of use this downtime to get themselves sorted, catch up with lots of admin, catch up with stuff that they haven't been able to do for a while, set the tone for where it's going to go. So motivation is key, and having fun is still key. We can still have fun in this situation. It's a different landscape, but ultimately teams are driven by their culture. Teams are driven by that level of engagement, and we've worked incredibly hard to make sure we keep those.
And with that, do you think there's some positive come out of all this at the moment? What do you think the long-term the long-term effects of working from home in this environment that we all are doing now? Do you think there's going to be some ramifications of that as we come out of this isolation period? Do you think that it's going to change cultures much? Do you think it's going to change the working environment at all?
100%. Like, the first question I can talk about for half an hour in terms of is things going to change. The fact that you helped me narrow it down to in terms of working hours and working practices and working from home. So, for example, there's a client of mine in Worcester. There over 700 people work there. I spoke to probably the second or third in command in that business the other day and said, "How are you getting on?" Because I would assume that most of your guys, they haven't furloughed one of those 700 people. And everybody's working from home. Granted, they've spent quite a bit of money on laptops and tech to get them set up, but they're such a progressive business. I was so impressed by that. And I know when I recruit for them, they do have flexi time, but they're not massive on people working from home normally. I know that will change. I know the landscape will change. I know that, and I spoke to them about productivity, only been a week of working from home for those guys. No change in productivity. Everyone seems really buoyed. Everyone can still deliver. They deliver a service which is essential, so the business is still trading. So everyone, there's no lack of motivation in the fact that their services aren't being delivered. They can still trade. To go back to your question, I think that will change. We're pretty stoic and we're pretty traditional in our mindset that people need to be visible in an office and for them to have that credibility and be able to deliver. Not anymore. That landscape has changed. And now I think at a time like this, when everybody knows how difficult it is for businesses and business owners and commercially, everyone's really knuckling down and working hard. So no one's going to be lazy. No one's going to be cutting corners working from home. Quite the opposite. I'm having to tell my guys to log off because, they're so committed to making sure that we come out of this successfully. I've told them, listen, the work-life balance continues. But yes, to answer your question, I think that landscape will change. And I think it needs to. I've spoken to some people in property, and I think I spoke to another client actually who's not renewing his lease, saving himself £250,000 on the building because he's made the decision. He's lease 100% Christian. September the lease comes up. He's already told them and he's forewarned them and given them notice that he won't be renewing that lease because he's seen so many phenomenal benefits in terms of productivity, morale, and people not being in the office. So I think I think there are some industries where you still need people to have a presence in the office, but what you will certainly see is
recruitment one of them.
No.
Because that's the big question for me now. We've got you said that with that after 2 weeks in, make a decision of that magnitude. Is that what's going to happen? We're all coming into tough times. We know this. We know what's coming now. Probably the biggest recession known to man is what we're being told, and it seems completely feasible. We're all going to be looking to cut that bottom line, and the bottom line is what's going to count. So at the end of the day, surely we're going to see people reducing their overheads in terms of office space alone if they haven't seen any impacts in the work environment just from people working from home.
100%. I spoke to someone else in property. He thinks that there's going to be commercial property is going to be a hell of a lot cheaper at the back end of 2020. He thinks that instead of if you've got 100 people in an office, what they'll make the office size considerably smaller to make sure you've got between 20 and 40 for hot desking at any one time. So listen, I think that will change. The first thing people are going to want to do is get back in the office. So the first thing people are going to want to do is have some contact with their colleagues and their employees, and give everyone a hug and have some banter, high five, have some banter, and just be able to interact. Because I think as a nation, we'll be missing that contact. I think after that period, there'll be because no one, obviously, unless your lease is coming up for renewal or unless you've got any plans to change, the physical aspect of your offices, things will stay the same for a quarter or two, and then I think you'll see a shift. I think you'll see a shift to hot desking. I think you'll see a shift to flexible office spaces. I think you'll see because video conferencing now, we can see the whites of people's eyes, we can interact, we can spot emotion, we can get all the things we can see face to face. I think you're still going to need that contact, but I don't think you're going to need it every day, 9 to 5.
No, I agree. I mean, running our PR and marketing agency, we're a digitally focused agency, although we do old school mainstream PR as well. But we're set up to work remotely anyway. I mean, it's the very nature of what we do. Whether we've, I don't know if we would never not have an office space though, because the very nature of what we do is a creative element to it, and bouncing ideas off one another. It's always a lot more organic if you're together.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see, but I think the hot desking is what's gonna play a role. And talking to a number of our clients as well, I think they're thinking the same. We've seen a couple of architects who themselves are thinking of moving, and their main barrier previously has been their need for everybody to have the right equipment around them, and that's completely changed now. That's changed over the last 10 years hugely anyway, and so now they've realized that there is no necessarily hugely ineffective impact of working from home, and now they understand that it is just efficient. People are ready to go at 9 a.m. on the button, and we've seen it as well. They've seen it. Everybody I've spoken to seen it. They're actually telling people that they have to log off. So the productivity is certainly there, and I think there might be a shift culturally all round. I think there might be a shift to people understanding what might be important. I mean, tell us about the culture part of how you work, and also you're very aware of the mental health that goes into everybody should be aware of as business leaders these days. What do you think the impact on mental health is going to be, though? Do you think, because we can talk about silver linings and things in a moment again, but what are the immediate impacts on that mental health, and how do we combat that with anybody that might be in isolation?
And that's the issue. I think that's the issue of mental health is, and a lot of mental health issues are that people genuinely feel isolated. They feel they've got a problem and especially if it's men, that they can't share with anyone because they're alpha males, or they think they are, and they think there's weakness in sharing it. And that's a problem with mental health in general. People are isolated, and when they're isolated, they make silly decisions, or they think things that they say they shouldn't think, but that's the space they're in. I think the big thing for me around the mental health piece, and we've experienced it historically at Baxter Williams, people who've worked in our business historically that have had those challenges. I think the biggest issue is around recognition and talking. So recognizing that it's okay not to feel great, that it's okay not to have a good day, that it's okay to have some down times, but also talking and finding the right vehicle. So I'm not a mental health practitioner, but we have people on hand if anybody needs to be able to get that kind of professional advice. I think there are some things, if it's a mental health issue that's prior to the work environment, that's going to be slightly more difficult. But what happens is there's issues before that get exacerbated or get accelerated by the work environment, and that's normally around stress and normally around comms. So I think the talking bit's really important, and you can eliminate some of those things by eliminating some of the stressful elements in a business, and by, I think the biggest thing is talking, Christian. When you talk about stuff, you get to the root of stuff. When you get to the root of stuff, you can address it. Because once you've got to the root of something, no matter how difficult it is to get to the end game, at least you know what you're working with, as opposed to someone that's just not engaging, as opposed to someone that's not making eye contact, someone that's not getting involved in social aspects, or in banter or social aspects outside of work. That kind of isolation is something that needs to be addressed. And I think the issue is that a lot of obviously there's an element of Baxter Williams that looks after employee engagement and staff retention. There's an element where too many line managers just don't feel comfortable enough addressing it, and so they'll brush it under the carpet or make it a attitude issue as opposed to a mental health issue. So for me, the biggest thing really is about recognition and communication and talking through these things. And sometimes it takes a long time. Sometimes these things never go away, but as long as they're recognised and dealt with, it allows you to be able to deal with the day-to-day life, which obviously work accounts for like a third of your day. If you're not happy at work, then you're generally not happy as an individual. And we see it all the time. We speak to candidates all the time that have got issues with work. that they turn into mental health issues because they turn into stress, they turn into conversations or conflicts with line managers or colleagues that don't get addressed. So for me, comms all day long, Christian.
Makes sense. I totally agree as well. Having a company called Nifty Communications as well, I think comms is the most important thing of any element of business these days. You know, whether that's with your customers, whether that's with your workforce, your stakeholders, whatever it may be, communications and content is king.
Going back to that, Christian, because for me, because obviously you've got your external comms and your internal comms, because obviously from a recruitment perspective, we recruit a number of the internal comms roles. That for you is going to be quite a massive opportunity, isn't it, moving forward? Because with employee engagement, there has to be an element of internal communication to say to people, listen, this is our employee value proposition, this is what we do, this is the great stuff we do. That's around the employee engagement piece. But actually on the back of now people being external, and now when they come back into that office environment or the more traditional environment, there may need to be some comms there. Have you looked at how you're going to address that for a number of people?
Yeah, one of the areas that we service and have service provisions in is events as well. And we've had a number of clients that have asked us about team building and what we can do around team building when everybody comes back in, because they're already aware that there might be a bit of a disconnect after people have come back after God knows how long we might go on for. At the moment, we're in this position for 3 weeks right now, but it might go on, and how we get them all working together again. There's an element there. There's also the element of internal comms. We run intranets for a number of people. We run internal comms strategies. So a lot of those guys are already set up okay to keep things on track. They've just implemented their intranets to being the default home pages of web browsers and things like that, and made that more accessible. And another area is inductions as well. They've been a scenario where one of our clients brings on a big batch of people. They have a sort of that's how they work. They have a big. Well, they don't bring on big batch of people. Sorry, they're constantly bringing on people. It's a big setup, but they have a batch of people doing inductions every month and every quarter. So they've now moved that to being in digital inductions. It's not going to stop them still teaching the culture and the philosophy and ethos of the company. It just means that they can do it in almost a more engaging way, because they can actually have people, they can track people's involvement in it in the way that we've built it. So it's a lot more easier to understand how far people have gone through the process, and almost allow them to have a tick list checked off at the end of it. So yeah, there are always opportunities in the comms world, because comms is constantly evolving and adapting, and we're dynamically set up to be able to adapt with it. So there's always opportunities, but for us at the moment, it's just making sure that our clients are set up so that they haven't got any really restrictive impact on their business. We want to help them evolve into digital if they haven't already, and enable them to be able to provide their services through digital, engage their workforce through digital, and we want to be able to prep them for what comes when we're out of this situation, how they're going to carry that forward. So yeah, there is a lot of opportunities, and that's why we started IsoNation as well. Obviously, working with you and Metis as our founding partners with IsoNation, because the main thing right now is we've got to help one another. We've all got to face these tough times together, and if there's any way that our experience and expertise can help you, or your experience and expertise can help someone else, then we should be providing it right now, because at the end of the day, it will allow, if we can work together now, it will allow us to recover quicker together when we're out on the other side of this.
I think that's an amazing point. I think it's when human beings and scenarios you're under duress, when there's like real conflict, when there's like stuff like happens, like it's normally post-war or it's post-recession, that's when people really come together. And I think that community and that unity at a time when there's so much uncertainty, as a business owner and a business leader, that's the time when you really need to collaborate. That's the time when you need to partner. That's the time when you need to share best practice. And that's the time when you need to say, well, you know what are you doing? How are you dealing with it? What strategies are you utilizing? What have you done to to make your business more agile? What have you done to kind of modify your business model and your offering to either take advantage of any opportunities, but more importantly, to survive and to create some level of continuity, however small, to see your business hopefully survives through this.
Yeah, and what will work for some people, it might not work for you, but being aware of it, at least you know that you could try it. And that's the point. Nothing's going to have an impact where it's such a big full stop as this, unless we're in a war or an environment like World War II and previous scenarios. But this full stop where everything's just ground to a halt is unprecedented in our lifetime, my lifetime, certainly. And so I need to know what other people are doing, because I want to understand. I'm completely clueless in this, and I don't mind admitting it. We've got plans, we've got strategies, and we've got processes that we can put in place. But this uncertainty where I have no idea what's going to happen. Learning from other people and just understanding how they're approaching it, it's not going to help with my nerve. It's not only going to help with my nerves, it's going to help us build a strategy that works for us, that we can tailor to ourselves. And there might be elements from something else, and might not. And hopefully our strategy can help other people as well. So that's the reason for IsoNation, is we can all share, learn, provide insight, and adapt and overcome together. And with that in mind, actually, while we're talking about that, what do you think? What's your first thoughts around what you're going to do when this lockdown ends?
First thing I'm going to do is go and have quite a few beers. That's the first thing I'm going to do when the lockdown ends, with my team, and all our families together. That's the first thing I'm going to do. That's the first thing I'm going to put on for the guys, is some food and copious amounts of lovely white wine and beer. That's the first thing. But secondly, from a business perspective, joking apart, we're going to do exactly what we did before. We're going to reach out. We're going to find out who our key partners are and our key organisations, the clients that we work with, and find out things have changed. The landscape's changed. We've been on hand. We haven't been in your face irritating you because you've had bigger fish to fry. But as soon as the landscape for you clears and the dust settles and you know exactly what you'd like to do, what from a people strategy perspective, where can we lend our expertise? And it might be that you're not looking to recruit. It might be that you're looking to recruit in the future. You need to benchmark it. It might be that you need to do some disc profiling for people, because having been isolated, you've seen some certain personality profiles coming out, and it'd be really nice to kind of understand. It might be that you take one of our employee engagement programs and just solidify things. Now you've got everybody back on site. It might just be that actually there's a shed load of recruitment to be done because we've now seen some opportunities and we need some assistance. So that's what we'll be doing, and it'll be really nice, because even though we've been in contact with all of our key clients and line managers, it'd be really nice to go and meet them, shake their hand, give them a hug for the guys and clients we're closer to, and just find out how Baxter Williams can get back to what we did before and just connecting exceptional people again.
And if there was, specifically for your industry, what good do you think can come from this? And then on a wider note, what three things would you like to see come from this all round for the working environment across all industries and all sectors?
The good thing that will come from it will be that, one, as a nation, we clubbed together and we got through it. Two, the government helped support small businesses because they underpin the GDP of this country. And three, that we still got businesses. They're the three things, that we still got businesses that people want to trade with us because we offer a great service, or we've got a great product that people still have in demand. And then what will change, I think, as I mentioned before, the one thing that's going to change is people's attitudes to flexible working and working from home.
Is that what you want to change, though? What do you want to change? That's what I asked. Well, because we've covered that, but if you could have a genie in a bottle, and he popped out now and he said, what three things would you like to see come from this for the community, the working community, the professional, the blue collar industries, whatever they may be, for anybody that goes to work, what would you like to see three things come from this? It's a big one.
It's a big one. You could have told me about this, bad boy. No, okay, so the one thing that I'd like to come from this, from line managers, that they see their workforce as their business. They don't see them as a cost base. They don't see them as a payroll number, that they see them as genuinely integral in the business. Because when things like this happen, you are nothing without the people that you've got. So people that really value them. So organizations really understand what their employee value proposition is, and they work really hard to make sure that they look after the people they've got. Because after all of this, the people that you've got left, you come out of this with, the soldiers that you've got, that you've gone into battle with in your team, they're the people you want in your business forever. They're the people you want to be promoted to direct. They're the people that you want to grow. If you can come through this, then that's your foundation. Second thing is, I'd like to see the mindset of business owners and leaders change their mindset around flexible working, and that people can be productive from a distance all day long, and that people can be trusted to do their job without someone leaning on them. There's still too many autocratic managers out there and leaders out there, and that comes back from a lot of the employee engagement surveys we do. The third one would be, actually, in a time like this, and we're going to see some of this in IsoNation, a time like this. So, for example, historically, recruiters don't like to talk to the recruits about what they do business-wise, because recruiters have got a reputation where they'll go and steal that business, or they'll go. At this time, you need to talk to people who are in the same industry. You need to share best practices. You need to share evolving strategies. As long as there's no direct competition, you need to really be able to speak and collaborate. And so I just hope that when we come through this, that people that have experienced it already, that people will realize that it's really good to collaborate with people in your industry. One, it improves the perception and profile of your industry. Two, it creates strong innovation to make sure that you guys are top of your game. And three, it's just great to talk. You know, the 1 and 1 equals 3. There's so much synergy from collaboration. So they're the 3 things I'd like to see come out of it.
Yeah, they're good. They're good as well.
Appreciate it. But generally, yeah. I mean, listen, organizations just don't value their staff enough. You know, they come to me when when someone's handed their notice in to leave, thinking they thought that person was happy. You know, they didn't review them, they didn't do one-to-ones, they didn't profile them to understand. They didn't manage them properly. They didn't communicate to them properly. They didn't take their opinions properly. They didn't involve them and engage them in what was going on in business. And when they leave, they think, wow. And so not enough organizations do exit interviews to find out why. And I think I'm hoping that the one thing that will come from it is that organizations genuinely value their people. Without your people, you haven't got anything. And as much as we love to keep taking fees off people, it's not about that. We don't want to. That's why I've got the employee engagement business, because we don't want to be recruiting the same role 3 times in 18 months. We don't want to do that. What we'd rather do is get under the skin of your organisation to find out a wider issue, which enables you to retain the staff, it enables you to retain the right people, have a strong employer brand, and be able to move forward. So that would be it. Yeah, definitely.
Well, thanks for your time today, Nick. That's a lovely way of rounding it up as well.
You.
Really appreciate it. Actually, I think I should probably pass the baton. How do you feel about doing some of these interviews going forward?
Well,
I think you're placed.
Well, you know, we've not confirmed anything yet, but it'd be really cool. And the great thing about what I do is, well, the great thing about what I do is I speak to loads of different people in loads of different sectors, loads of different verticals across the country. And so, I'm absolutely flattered that you'd like me to get some leaders' insight. One, in my network and externally, you know, people can call in, or they can message us and say, listen, we'd love to give you the benefit of how we've dealt with this. And I think collectively, if we don't garner enough opinions, we don't garner enough views and share insights, we're not going to collaborate. We're not going to get through this together. So to answer your question, I'd love to. It'd be great. It would be great. And perhaps I should do one with you.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's the point of IsoNation, though. I mean, you know, if we can have anybody that we can have coming onto these interviews and share their insight and opinions like you have today in such an informative way, then I hope we can only benefit from it. So, you know, hopefully people have enjoyed this interview today. If you are watching and you want to get involved, give us a shout out, get in touch through Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, or Instagram. We're also on isonation.co.uk. However you want to get involved, whether it's leaving comments or give us a shout out if you want to be a contributor. You know, we're looking for people who have got leading insight, unique and valuable perspectives. So please give us a shout and get involved. And again, thanks to Nick. Nick's company Baxter Williams is a founding partner of IsoNation, so you'll see their logo on the website. You'll find out more about Baxter Williams from there as well. But yeah, thank you, Nick. Thank you very much. Thank you everybody for watching. Take care, and we'll be seeing you all again soon.
All right, thanks very much, Christian. Catch you everyone soon.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye bye.